Have we seen the end of quarterback Jameis Winston here in New Orleans? Why the outlook isn't great, but the door's not fully closed. We got all that and a little bit of lanyard for you on today's episode of Locked On Saints.
You are Locked On Saints, your daily New Orleans Saints podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is good, Who Dat Nation and Who Dat family? Welcome into another episode of Locked On Saints, your daily podcast covering your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks so much as always. Make a Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. Don't forget we're free and available on all podcast apps and on YouTube as well. And I'm your host, Ross Jackson, at Ross Jackson Nola on Twitter, your New Orleans Saints expert, credential member of the media, CrescentCitySports.com, USA Today Saints Wire, Tuesdays at Locked On NFL, and here with you every single Monday through Friday on Locked On Saints. And today's episode of Locked On Saints is sponsored by Simply Safe Home Security with Fast Protect technology. Exclusively from Simply Safe, 24/7 monitoring agents capture evidence to accurately verify a threat or for faster police response. There's no safe like Simply Safe. Visit simplysafe.com/LockedOnNFL to learn more. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about them later on. But for today's episode, we're going to take a look at whether or not the New Orleans Saints can buck their underdog trend that has not been a positive one so far this season. We'll finally answer the question, will Alvin Kamara be traded this season? But first, is it all said and done for quarterback Jameis Winston when it comes to the New Orleans Saints? Earlier this week on Wednesday, head coach Dennis Allen making the announcement that they would be moving forward with Andy Dalton at quarterback, at least for kind of the foreseeable future, right? Moving forward was the quote. The reasoning around that is that Dennis Allen and the Saints seem to like what it is that the New Orleans Saints have been able to do at quarterback with Andy Dalton, on offense with Andy Dalton at quarterback. So where does that leave Jameis Winston in this entire situation? Well, the outlook isn't great, but the door is still open for Jameis. One of the things that Dennis Allen said that is a little bit more about not just listening to what is being said, but hearing what hasn't been said, right? Listening to what he's not saying. One of the things that he said was, as long as the offense continues to move the ball, as long as the offense continues to be efficient, I'm paraphrasing, that Andy Dalton will still be out there. What's unsaid there, but still very clear, is that that would then mean that if the offense does take some kind of a nosedive, if the production does fall off, if the Saints can't move the ball, if they can't score, all of these things, then all of a sudden, there's an opportunity, the door is still open, to go back to Jameis Winston, in which Jameis Winston could then earn that role back. But if that doesn't happen, it's hard to see a reality in which Jameis Winston comes back to this team in 2023. I mean, why would you, right? Why would you go back to that? So if you're looking at where Jameis Winston's outlook is for 2022, it's bleak. It's not great, right? Unless the offense sputters out. But then what are you hoping for at that point? Are you hoping that the Saints offense struggles, or are you just hoping that Jameis Winston goes out there to play potentially meaningless football by the time that happens, right? So it's a struggle if you're a fan, and I completely understand that, completely get that. And maybe you get a little something, right? Another trick play with Jameis Winston on a reverse or a double pass and things like that, kind of like they did a couple of years ago. But what the New Orleans Saints have really set themselves up for in all of this is that they have a major quarterback question now to answer in 2023. Jameis was originally on a 2-year contract, but $11.2 million is not enough dead cap to justify not moving on from him. And there is a potential out in the contract between 2022 and 2023. So it's there, it's built in, it's ready to go. And because most of that money is kind of built into signing bonus anyway, they were still going to be paying off some chunk of that change regardless in 2024, 2025, 2026, the void years that are on that deal. So for the Saints, it's 6 in one, half a dozen in the other in terms of what that dead money looks like. So there's not enough reason for them to fight to keep him around in 2023. And honestly, there's no reason for Jameis, if he doesn't see the field again this season, for him to want to stick around. He should go and look for another opportunity. You know, the Indianapolis Colts, they had a plane ready for him to go and visit Indianapolis, but when he got the opportunity to stay in New Orleans, he turned them down. He said not going anymore, canceled his visit with them, and then stayed in New Orleans. The other big question, too, as this, while the Saints are going to be trying to answer their quarterback question in 2023, which for now we can't worry about that, right? If you're a Saints fan, don't worry about that right now because there's enough questions to answer here in 2022 about whether or not the Saints are going to be able to win with Andy Dalton, what this team is going to look like, can they begin to rebound, all of that stuff. So that might mean, though, that Jameis Winston will be done in New Orleans and then looking for another place to land next season. But the thing that we kind of know about the NFL is that they're very unforgiving in situations like this. And so we could also see Jameis Winston's time as a starter in the NFL done. He could be one of those guys that we're talking about next year landing on a team, just like we here in New Orleans talked about Andy Dalton being one of the better backup quarterbacks in the NFL, same way that we talked about Teddy Bridgewater in Miami and Jacoby Brissett in Cleveland, all of that. Oh, and of course, Tyler Huntley in Baltimore. And listen, if you want to give me a quarterback from some other team right now or next year, give me Tyler Huntley all day long. So when I look at, and when I'm talking about Tyler Huntley, I'm talking about the one in Baltimore, by the way, behind Lamar Jackson. So when, not Brett Hundley, don't confuse the two. So we could potentially be seeing not only the end of Jameis Winston's time here in New Orleans, it could be the end of his time as a starter in the NFL, because we know how the NFL is, right? And that's a tough situation for a first overall selection that Jameis Winston was, however it is that you want to put it. So it's tough. It's a tough situation for Jameis. It's a tough situation for the New Orleans Saints, who are going to be trying to answer this question potentially for years to come at the quarterback position, because Andy Dalton's not your quarterback of the future, right? He's the quarterback that you're trying to win with right now, but he's not the guy that is, he might be a bridge quarterback for you in 2023, but he's not going to be your quarterback through your 2020s. You know what I mean? So lots of questions for the New Orleans Saints to answer, but I know it looks bleak for Jameis, but the door isn't fully closed just yet. But on the other hand, if he never sees the field again, it's because Andy Dalton and the Saints offense are playing well. So which one do you want, right? Coming up next, let's answer the other biggest question for the New Orleans Saints. Is Alvin Kamara actually going to be traded? Is there any merit to the rumors? We'll answer that question as we continue on with today's episode of Locked On Saints. Before we get to there, though, I want to tell you about our sponsor, Simply Safe. Promise you I'll tell you a little bit more about them. Here's an analogy for you. When it comes to burglars, your home's kind of the end zone, right? And then you want to make sure you have the strongest defense that you can muster so that you can keep them out. So that's why we use Simply Safe. Home security at Simply Safe. Your safety is the only thing that matters. It's cutting edge technology. It's powered by 24/7 professional monitoring agents who always have your back so that you always know that your home is safe, especially if you're like me and you travel a lot. You want to make sure that you can check in at home and you can see what's going on, and you always have some type of protection going on, which is awesome. And those monitoring experts, they use proprietary advanced response technology to visually confirm when a break-in is real as opposed to a false alarm or something like that, so that you always get the highest priority when it comes to dispatch. You can customize your perfect system for your home in just a few minutes over at simplysafe.com/lockedonnfl. Save 20% off of your Simply Safe security system when you sign up for interactive monitoring plans and get your first month for free. All you got to do is visit simplysafe.com/lockedonnfl to learn more, because there's no safe like Simply Safe. All right, family, continuing on with today's episode of Locked On Saints. Thanks again, as always, for making us your first listen of the day every day here. Is Alvin Kamara going to be traded? Is he going to be traded to the Philadelphia Eagles or to anyone else before the trade deadline hits on Tuesday? No. There you go. Answered that question for you. It's not happening, y'all. Block those rumor accounts. They're not good for your health. So instead of talking about Alvin Kamara and how he's not going to be traded because of a contract that would result in $25.5 million of dead money, because apparently the asking price, the fictitious asking price that's out there as a first-round pick, ain't no team trading a first-round pick for a running back, especially one that's due to be suspended for 6 games next season or later on this season. We'll see how all of it goes. It ain't happening. So instead of talking about that, let's instead break down how the New Orleans Saints can utilize Alvin Kamara to win against the Las Vegas Raiders. I thank you again, as always, making Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. For your second listen, make sure you go and check out Locked On Sports today. Get all the big news around the world of sports, about 22 minutes or so from the local experts in the way that only the Locked On Podcast Network can bring you. You can find it on the Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. So, the way that the New Orleans Saints are going to be able to utilize Alvin Kamara against the Las Vegas Raiders, there are a couple different ways. Obviously, there's the run game, right? And his versatility in the run game, you can run him between the tackles, you can run him outside the tackles. I say run him outside the tackles. Utilize outside zone all the time. You have a banged up secondary in that, for that Las Vegas Raiders defense. And one of the things you can take advantage of when you're going up against the hurt secondary is not only taking advantage of the passing game, but you're taking advantage of the perimeter run game as well. Those guys that are on the outside that don't get a lot of reps, they don't have those live tackling reps that make them good perimeter defenders over on the outside. So that's a huge spot where the New Orleans Saints should be able to utilize Alvin Kamara to be able to take advantage of that. The other thing is that the Las Vegas Raiders utilize a ton of man coverage, about twice as much as the Arizona Cardinals, who mainly live kind of in cover 3 zones and things like that with the 3 deep defenders, and everybody's playing zone instead of man, meaning that they're guarding an area as opposed to guarding a specific player. You're not guarding me straight up, you're guarding an area of the field. Well, if you're a Las Vegas Raiders cornerback or defender, you're probably guarding me man to man, straight up, right? Or person to person. So when we look at the way that they can utilize Alvin Kamara, I have one big thing. It's option route time. It's option route time. That's my big thing. Utilize the option routes that we've seen Alvin Kamara dominate with over and over again. The Las Vegas Raiders don't have a good second level. They don't have great linebackers there. And so if you're able to get those guys on their heels a little bit as Alvin Kamara kind of like leaks out of the backfield, and then Alvin Kamara has the option to go to cut inside or cut outside, get that linebacker that's manned up on Alvin Kamara or that safety that's manned up on Alvin Kamara hesitating back on his heels, give him a little one of each, little shaky shake, and all of a sudden you're out to the outside or you're back to the inside. You've left them in the dust, and then all of a sudden you have an easy throw to make if you're Andy Dalton in this situation. So that's one. Like the little shaky shake. That was mostly for the video folks, but I tried to make it entertaining for you on the audio side as well. So here's what I'll say to the linebackers, the second level for Las Vegas when it comes to stopping the Alvin Kamara option routes.
I don't think you have the facilities for that, big man.
I don't think you have the facilities for that. Very simple. The next thing is going to be Chris Olave. Chris Olave is excellent against press man coverage. He does a very good job getting off of press. You're not going to see him up on the line of scrimmage playing the X receiver role with Michael Thomas. Very likely not playing in this game. That's probably going to be Marquez Callaway. So on the opposite side, you still get Chris Olave lined up off the line of scrimmage, 1 or 2 yards back, 1 yard back, and then therefore not really giving that corner an opportunity to get hands on him. And even if they do, he does a very good job of working through press and getting open. He's also phenomenal when it comes to getting free from man coverage. And some of that has to do with his speed, right? So you utilize that long speed crossing over the middle of the field. If you look at what who was it? They did it a ton this past week. I think it was Jamar Chase and the Cincinnati Bengals this past weekend. They would just run these guys. And same thing with T. Higgins. They would just cross the entire field with him over and over and over again. And that's what you can do with Chris Olave as well, because he has that long speed. So you're making them not only try to keep up with him vertically, but you have to keep up with him horizontally while he's running you through traffic, all that other stuff. So real opportunity here for Chris Olave to have a big breakout game. I mean, he's already had like 140 plus receiving yards in a game, but you know what I mean. The Raiders also have a lack of pass rush over on the defensive side, and that means that the Saints should be able to take advantage of that and take advantage of man coverage, because it doesn't take a long time for those man coverage beating plays to develop. You're running, scissor concepts down the field. You're running mesh concepts underneath. You're running crossing concepts. It's not stuff that takes a long time to develop. So that's the other piece where Andy Dalton should be pretty comfortable back there, unless all of a sudden the Saints give Las Vegas a pass rush, but the offensive line has gotten better. The sacks are down, things like that. So hopefully that's something that this offensive line, which should be 5 for 5 this week with Andres Pete back in, they should be able to hold up there in that area. And if you can't, then you've got all the quick passes too. That's the other thing that man coverage gives you, because if they play off man, then you have the quick passes available to you underneath those coverages. If they're playing press man, when you have a guy like Chris Olave who can win at the first level one is what it's called, or what defenses generally call it. If he can win in level one, then all of a sudden he's cutting back inside, or he's winning to the outside, whatever it might be. You can drop some of those passes in pretty quickly. And Andy Dalton does do a good job of getting the ball out quickly. 2.6 seconds, still a bit longer than what we've seen with Breeze in previous seasons, but also they've been letting things develop a little bit more on average downfield with the New Orleans Saints have. And in the last piece here is Juwan Johnson, right? Juwan Johnson is a big enough guy that safeties can't really match up with him, but a fast enough guy that linebackers can't really match up with him. He is a man coverage terror, and he should be able to have another good game. Coming off of a 2-touchdown game last week against a heavy zone team, now he gets to man up and have somebody actually try to put hands on him off the line of scrimmage. And Juwan Johnson, I talked to him yesterday, guy is a lot bigger than we have seen him in the past. And he's not surprised at all by his development, not in like a cocky way or anything like that, but like he knows what he has to offer. And right now he can help this team win games. All right, y'all, coming up next, the New Orleans Saints underdogs going into this game at home against the Las Vegas Raiders. And they've been winless so far when they're underdogs. Can they turn the tide this week? I'll tell you why. It might work out for them. Now, a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp. Yes, I absolutely love BetterHelp. I use BetterHelp because I'm a believer in therapy, big time. I have a work problem. I work too dang much. And sometimes I need a little bit of help with that. So BetterHelp helps me with all that. Seriously, though, like BetterHelp's awesome. Like if you're somebody that's been thinking about trying therapy, that's been thinking about trying it out, BetterHelp's a great first step into it. And it's a great option for you, honestly, even in terms of longevity. It's convenient because it's all at home. It's all virtual. It's entirely online. It's affordable. It's accessible. All of that. I mean, look, I've talked about this before. Sometimes it's really, really hard to even admit that you're wanting to start therapy. And then the next step is even harder. Sometimes finding the right person that can be your therapist, that can help you through those things that you trust in all those situations. And so I love the way that BetterHelp works. You take kind of a questionnaire and then they appoint you or assign you to someone that they feel like is a good fit for you. So you don't just blindly go in, like they actually match you with somebody. And then if that doesn't work, you can change therapists for free, which is not always a big thing. Sometimes some of the biggest expenses is actually changing to a different therapist, all the other stuff. So this is awesome. So when you want to start being a better problem solver, when you want to start really like diving into some things that you want to work on, therapy can help you do all that and can help you get there. So visit betterhelp.com/lockedon, LOCKEDON. You're going to get 10% off of your first month. That's betterhelp.com/lockedon. Let's get it, Who Dat Nation. Wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Saints with our beignets and parlays segment. BetOnline, where you can find all the odds, lines, and props more than ever before over at BetOnline, where the game starts. They've got the New Orleans Saints as underdogs in this game up against the Las Vegas Raiders. The Saints 2-5, the Raiders 2-4. Made that mistake during the crossover Thursday with your boy Q. If you missed that, I called them 2-5. Forgot they already had their bye week. All this stuff. They're coming off this big exhilarating win against the Houston Texans. Meanwhile, the New Orleans Saints are desperate to find a win after a couple straight losses. So for New Orleans, they need this win. And I've been pretty consistent all week that not only do they need a win, they need a statement win here. And especially with them being underdogs at home, this is a great opportunity for them to get to it. Before we start breaking everything down, here's a quick 30-second kind of installation for you, just to give you the background on how the line has moved so far this week, why the line has moved this week. This is from BetOnline odds maker Dave Mason, and then we'll chat a little bit more about how the New Orleans Saints can kind of turn the tide of their winless streak as underdogs.
Las Vegas Raiders at New Orleans Saints after opening as a pick'em. 2-4 Vegas moved to 2-point road favorites. Some early sharp bettors thought that was too much as they bet the 2-5 Saints at +2 and again at +1.5. This moved the spread to its current price, Vegas laying a point. As far as the overall action is concerned, 68% of the bettors so far are on the Raiders.
Dave Mason here, giving you all the background that you need in terms of how the line has moved and everything. But the big thing to take away from here is obviously a lot of people bet this down. And so when they saw the 2-point spread, the 1.5-point spread, you saw a lot of folks jump at that the Saints might be able to cover that or maybe even win. At this point, if you're taking, +1, you're expecting the New Orleans Saints to win. So, do you go with the line? Do you go with the money line? All the other stuff. So there's a bunch of different conversations that you could also take away from all that. But the New Orleans Saints so far 0-4. All 4 of their losses have been in games where they're not favorites, where they are the underdogs. That includes a couple of home games as well. So can they change that trend? Can they buck that trend? And for the Saints, there's a one little sliver of hope that from the Las Vegas Raiders side that might work in their favor, and it's that the Las Vegas Raiders have 2 wins on the 4 times that they have been favored so far, but they've lost the only matchup in which they've been favored on the road. They lost that matchup 22-24 just a few weeks ago when they traveled to take on the Tennessee Titans. So that's a big thing to just kind of keep in mind here, that, the Saints usually have really, really good home field advantage. It hasn't been the case for them lately, but look, they're trying to turn the tide, right? So maybe this is the time that they also get a little bit of that home field advantage, and then that home field advantage begins to permeate throughout the rest of their season, which would certainly be of great benefit to them. A couple of other notes here for you on the Saints. So of the 4 times they've been underdogs so far this season, they've covered once. Now, the difference here is that basically covering means that you're tying or you're winning, right? So if they win, then they should cover. But they have hit the over in 3 of those 4 matchups. This time the over-under is set at 50. So if you're looking at scores the way that I'm looking at them, I actually think that the Saints can win this game by multiple scores. 30-16 is the prediction that I went with over at USA Today for Saints Wire. And so that's not going to get you into the over, but it's certainly something that gives you an exhilarating game. Now, let's go away from the odds when it comes to the game for a second. Let's talk about player odds, and I want to tell you about Chris Olave. Chris Olave has now fallen a little bit in terms of Offensive Rookie of the Year odds. He is now the 3rd best odds. So this is what I was saying. Once a running back or a quarterback begins to pop off in the rookie conversation, then all of a sudden Chris Olave will come down. So if you want to bet him, this might be the time to do it. Right now, he leads all rookies, not just rookie wide receivers, rookies in targets, in receptions, in receiving yards, and he has the most converted first downs for rookie. I keep doing Wookiees. I keep saying Wookiees. Rookie wide receivers in the NFL. He's also got 2 touchdowns. I think this is an opportunity in this game when he's going to see a lot of man coverage. It's a banged up secondary. It's an Andy Dalton that's looking to prove that Dennis Allen made the right decision. All of these things. Very little pass rush outside of Max Crosby. Hopefully that continues. This can be a breakout game for Chris Olave up against that Raiders secondary with all that man coverage, with that banged up secondary. So something to keep in mind here for Chris Olave, that this could be the week that kind of sets him apart from the rest of that rookie class and maybe gets him back into the favorites. So if you're really feeling the idea of Chris Olave as Offensive Rookie of the Year this year, and you haven't bet on it yet, this week at plus 800, this might be the time to do it ahead of this game. Just saying. All right. I appreciate y'all. As always, remember, we have our postcast episode, which would be live from the I almost said Mercedes-Benz Superdome. Y'all, it's Friday, and my brain is like, take a day, fam. Take a day. Caesar Superdome. I'll be there. Let me know if you're going to be there. I'll do my best to come out and say hi and everything like that, too. But we will have the postcast, which will happen right after media availability. So the game will end. We'll have media availability with Dennis and with DA and with the players that they can make available, and then the locker room. And then I'll go back upstairs and then we'll go live. So we'll do a live postcast episode and then an extra Monday episode going a little bit deeper. We'll focus on narrative storylines, what the win or loss, hopefully win, means for the New Orleans Saints moving forward, all that stuff in the postcast. Then we'll get to the more in-depth nitty-gritty football conversation on Monday. So y'all make sure y'all show up, blow that up for me as we continue to make sure you have everything you need here on Locked On Saints every single Monday through Friday. Appreciate you as always. Make Locked On Saints your first listen of the day every day. Don't forget to also go and check out Locked On Pelicans, Locked On LSU. Both teams on the right trajectory right now. If you care about your Louisiana sports, definitely want to make sure you're checking those shows out as well. And of course, you can make Locked On Sports Today your second listen today. That'll get you the biggest stories of the day. Instant reactions, big game recaps, take of the day, everything that you need. Available on the Odyssey app, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. Appreciate you as always. Make me part of your day, part of your routine for saying yes to me and the show. As always, if you see me, say hi. If you need anything else around these episodes on your New Orleans Saints, make sure you follow me on Twitter at Ross Jackson, NOLA. Hit me up. Let me know how the family's doing. Let me know how you're living. Let me know how you're momming them. And trust Who Dat Nation. I'll holla at you.